Martin Luther King Jr. was a man whose life, words, and actions reshaped history and continue to influence the world today. When many people hear his name, they immediately think of one speech or one moment in time, but his legacy reaches far beyond a single day or a single dream. His life was a reflection of courage, faith, sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to justice, equality, and love for humanity. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia, into a deeply religious and disciplined household. His father was a Baptist minister, and his mother was an educator, both of whom instilled in him strong moral values and a belief in education as a pathway to empowerment. From an early age, King was confronted with the painful realities of racial segregation. He experienced discrimination firsthand and watched friendships dissolve simply because of the color of his skin. These early encounters with injustice deeply shaped his worldview and sparked questions that would later define his life's mission. King was an exceptional student who entered college at a young age and continued on to earn advanced degrees in theology. During his studies, he was introduced to the philosophy of nonviolent resistance, particularly through the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. This concept resonated deeply with King's Christian faith and became the foundation of his approach to social change. He believed nonviolence was not passive or weak, but a powerful moral force capable of transforming both individuals and societies. To King, love was not just an emotion, but an active decision and a weapon against hate. His emergence as a national leader began in 1955 during the Montgomery bus boycott, which followed Rosa Parks' arrest for refusing to give up her seat. For more than a year, black citizens walked instead of riding segregated buses, enduring hardship with dignity and resolve. During this time, King's home was bombed, and he received constant threats against his life. Despite the danger, he remained committed to nonviolence and encouraged others to respond to hatred with courage and faith. This moment marked the beginning of a broader civil rights movement that would challenge segregation and inequality across the United States. As the movement grew, so did resistance to it. King was arrested numerous times and subjected to intense surveillance and criticism, even from those who believed his demands were too radical or too fast. In Birmingham, Alabama, peaceful protesters were met with brutal force, including police dogs and fire hoses, exposing the cruelty of segregation to the world. While imprisoned in Birmingham, King wrote what would become one of the most influential texts of the civil rights era, explaining that waiting for justice often meant denying it, and that silence in the face of injustice was itself a form of complicity. In 1963, King stood before a crowd of more than 250,000 people during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. There he delivered the iconic "I Have a Dream" speech, which articulated a vision of a nation where people would be judged by their character rather than their skin color. The speech was not only a message of hope, but also a demand for equality, economic opportunity, and accountability. It challenged America to live up to its founding ideals and recognize the humanity of all its citizens. As time went on, King expanded his focus beyond segregation to include economic justice and global peace. He spoke openly about poverty, calling it a moral failure of society, and criticized the Vietnam War, believing it diverted resources from the fight against inequality at home and contradicted the principles of nonviolence. These positions made him increasingly controversial and cost him public support, but he remained steadfast in his belief that justice required honesty and moral courage, even when it was unpopular. On April 4, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, while supporting striking sanitation workers. His death sent shockwaves across the nation and the world. Communities mourned deeply, and many were forced to confront the high cost of delayed justice and systemic inequality. Although his life was cut short, his message could not be silenced. Today, King's legacy lives on through civil rights legislation, voting protections, and the ongoing fight for equality and justice. More importantly, it lives on in the hearts and actions of those who continue to stand against injustice, speak truth in difficult moments, and choose love over hate. King believed that life's most persistent and urgent question was what we are doing for others. That question remains just as relevant now as it was during his lifetime. Martin Luther King Jr. was not a perfect man, but he was a committed one. He showed the world that faith must be lived out through action, that justice requires sacrifice, and that dreams demand work. His legacy is not just a chapter in history books, it is a responsibility passed down to each generation. The dream he shared is still alive, and the work he began is far from finished.